You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And hey, you're listening to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And we are here for our April 2023 mid-month book news check-in, where we go over the latest Asian American book and publishing news. So yeah, we got a hefty list this month.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it has nothing to do with Asian American Heritage Month,
surely.
But it feels like we're gearing up towards it with all these book deals.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's just get into it. As always, we begin our mid-month check-ins by going over the latest Asian American publishing news, taking a look at what's coming up ahead in Asian American literature. So, Rira, what is our first deal?
All right, so our first deal is FSG acquired the middle grade novel Maybe It's a Sign by E.L. Shen. After the sudden loss of her father, 7th grader Freya Jun's son discovers that the superstitions and expectations inherited from him are getting in the way of moving on from her loss and finding out who she really is. Publication is set for winter 2024. Yeah, so E.L. Shen is the author of The Comeback, which is about figure skating. So this is a departure from that topic.
Yeah, I mean, dead parent stories are, I wouldn't say something I seek out in my life, but it's an experience that I know people go through, and especially hard on kids. And so it's nice to see that there is a version of that story for kids of Chinese and Asian backgrounds, because the way that we grieve is a little bit different than, like mainstream grieving, right?
Yeah. What are the ways that, I guess, like Chinese people grieve? Because in like Korea, we have like the 49 days of grieving. So that's the thing that's...
Honestly, I don't know. I have to ask my parents, because every time that we've done like Chinese funerals, I pretty much just done what I was told, right? That you either have like a funeral planner who walks you through the rituals, or you just follow your parents and do what they do. I think that's...
Yeah, I was just curious because the book says like it mentions superstitions. So I don't know if it's like superstitions about death and like traditions, but it could also be superstitions in general, because all of our Asian parents have their own superstitions, and I guess like we kind of retain that as we grow up. Anyway, What's our second book deal?
Okay, Scholastic Press bought frazzled author Booki Vivat's graphic illustrated middle grade novel Meet Me on Mercer Street. The book follows aspiring artist Casey, who must use her sketchbooks and observational skills to figure out where her best friend has disappeared to, why her neighborhood is changing, and what, if anything, she can do about it. Publication is planned for spring 2024.
Because the main character is using sketchbooks, I wonder what the art style is going to be. I wonder if we're going to be like seeing like pencil sketches in the panels.
Yeah, I took a look at her Frazzled series, and the art style does definitely lend to a sketchbook aesthetic. So sounds exciting, sounds like a lot of fun. Excited to learn more about this, I guess, middle grade. Is it a mystery? It's kind of giving me mystery vibes, right?
Yeah, it does sound like a mystery. I love stories where kids are, are kind of playing like Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Always a lot of fun.
All right, next up, Little Bee Books acquired world rights to Seeker of Truth, Kailash Satyarthi's fight to end child labor. Written by Srividhya Venkat and illustrated by Danica da Silva Pereira. This picture book biography is about 2014 Nobel Peace Prize laureate Kailash Satyarthi's lifelong mission to end child labor around the world. Publication is slated for summer 2024.
Wow. Talk about a timely announcement given the... did you hear about the child labor laws going on in Iowa this week?
No, I haven't. But
Oh,
I recently watched Last Week Tonight, and they did a whole episode on child labor in farms. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, apparently in Iowa now it's legal to hire um, kids 16 and up for up to 6 hours a day.
Like in any job?
Yeah.
That's nuts. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, child labor making a comeback in America.
I mean, it never disappeared. It's just now
Now it's legal.
now it's legal in Iowa.
Oh, well.
We used to be more discreet in terrible things. What happened?
Well, hopefully books like this will help educate the next generation in like reminding us that, hey, wait, child labor is kind of not good.
Not kinda, just not good.
All right. Our next deal, Harper Teen acquired in an exclusive submission Axie's YA romance ASAP. Set in Seoul, the novel follows the wealthy daughter of a K-pop company owner who must weigh her love for her K-pop star ex-boyfriend against the potential damage to her family and his reputation if the public finds out about their relationship. Publication is scheduled for winter 2024.
Let me just say, just don't help your ex on this. It's a bad, I don't know. I see a lot of red flags.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something peculiar about just Asian, like the Asian pop culture idol world, where like something like this would just be like another day in the news in America, but in like countries like Korea, countries like Japan and Taiwan, it's like the biggest deal in the world. And
I mean, not so much anymore. Like dating has become like way more acceptable, especially like between celebrities. Obviously, there's going to be like hate and fan wars, but a lot of the times it does blow over after like a couple weeks, as long as like people are not being, I guess, like explicit with details on their relationship. But this is Axie's like second book that has K-pop in it. Her previous book, XOXO, also had a K-pop idol love interest. So yeah, diving back into that world.
yeah.
All right, next up, Amazon Publishing's Thomas and Mercer imprint paid 7 figures for North American rights to the first 2 books in Tess Gerritsen's The Martini Club series. The first book, titled The Spy Coast, follows Maggie Bird, a retired CIA operative in small-town Maine, who must tackle the ghosts of her past with the help of her local circle of old friends. The Spy Coast will be released in October.
Yeah, this sounds like, I guess, would this be like the cozy version of a spy thriller?
I don't know. I feel like those two things don't go together. Don't go together.
You have like a retired former spy. And
I feel like this isn't a thriller. It's more like a slice of life about a retired spy and just like them recovering.
Yeah, well, it looks like Tess Gerritsen is the author of like the Brazilian Isles series, and her bread and butter is like political and like medical thrillers. So my hunch is that this is going to be more thrillery than a slice of life.
Yeah, it could kind of be like Broadchurch. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. All right. Next up, HarperCollins won at auction with Twice the Love, Dessie May, a middle grade novel by Justina Chen. The book is about 12-year-old Dessie May Breedlove, who moves to Seattle and meets a girl who looks exactly like her. The girls learn that they were adopted from the same orphanage in Hunan, only Dessie was adopted into a white family and her twin adopted into a Taiwanese American one. Publication is scheduled for summer 2024.
This reminds me of the 2015 documentary Twinsters, which was about 2 identical Korean twins who find each other through Facebook. So.
Yeah, that was Sam Futterman's documentary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doc came out about the same time as our other friend Dan Matthews' online docuseries, aka Dan, where he finds his
twin brother.
Yeah, where he, after doing a birth search, finds his birth family and his twin brother.
Yeah, it's funny with like Dan Matthews because I remember like right before he went to Korea for that documentary. Like he was just like casually saying, "Oh yeah, I found my birth parents, and I have a twin brother apparently." And I was like, "You're joking, right?" Like he said it so casually that
Yeah.
I was like, "Wait, this happens in real life? Like you like find out that you have an identical twin brother or twin sister?" So
Yeah, the fact that
yeah,
both of those stories happen around the same time, it really makes you think about how often this stuff happens. And so I like that they're exploring that story here.
I feel like there's a lot of themes that can be explored in this book. So congratulations to Justina. Looking forward to reading it. All right, next up, HarperCollins acquired world rights to a Rakhi for Rakesh, written by Nadia Salomon, the author of Goodnight Ganesha, and illustrated by Nabi H. Ali. The picture book is about a brother and sister duo who explore the importance of forgiveness, family, and what it means to be a caring sibling as they celebrate the Hindu holiday of Raksha Bandhan. Publication is planned for summer 2025.
Yeah, our first Asian holiday book of April 2023. I am not familiar with Hindu holidays, but I'm glad, as always, that there are books now exploring them.
Yeah, more holiday books. It helps for compiling lists because, like I feel like, for example, like there are books about Chinese New Year, but we need more diversity in like Lunar New Year. So I am really glad that we are getting more books on holidays outside of East Asian culture.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Entangled Teen acquired the Lotus Flower Championship by mother-daughter authors Pintip Dunn and Love Dunn. Pitched as Squid Game meets Peter Pan with folktales from Thailand, this fantasy thriller is about a girl with OCD who is marooned with 11 other people on a remote island that looks like paradise but feels like hell due to the machinations of a scientist desperate to unlock their latent psychic abilities. Publication is planned for fall 2023. That description was quite a lot.
Yeah, and I love how this is a mother-daughter author duo. Like how does that work?
I'm curious too. Maybe we should ask them one of these days. But yeah,
I've never watched Lost, but it does give me Lost vibes.
Yeah, if Lost was a death game, that's kind of what I'm getting here. Have you seen Yellow Jackets yet?
No, I haven't.
Similar vibes there too. But yeah, I mean, the death game / Lord of the Flies / deserted island. It's a timeless setup, and I'm excited to see how this one goes with that.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound like hell if you're someone with OCD and you have to deal with 11 other people.
Yeah, and then there's psychic abilities, so espers.
Yes. All right, next up, Holiday House imprint Margaret Ferguson Books bought A Story of Our Own by APALA medalist Kalia Yang. The YA memoir is about Yang's journey to becoming a writer in a Hmong American refugee household and the stories that kept her family together. Publication is slated for summer 2025.
Yeah, this sounds really cool. Always great to see more Hmong representation in our book deals. We've talked a lot about how representation has grown over the last few years, but there's still a lot more work to do. There isn't nearly as much as it should be. And even within the Asian American representation umbrella, there are still lots of voices that still need to be elevated and still needs to be heard. And I'm glad that we're seeing more authors from different backgrounds writing stories and memoirs. All right, next up, Clarion acquired world rights to Diana Ma's middle grade contemporary novel, The Rainbow Fair. When Sophie Hu is put in charge of the Muslim booth at her middle school's Rainbow Fair, she has to navigate the complexities of friendship and intersectional cultural identities as a Chinese Muslim girl. Publication is scheduled for winter 2025.
Intersectionality is very important. And like we said, the Chinese American diaspora is, there's a lot there. There's a lot of, different variations.
Yeah. I mean, Chinese Muslim is like actually a pretty sizable population within China. Many of the Western provinces are majority Muslim.
And we've had Diana Ma on our show before. She's the author of Heiress, apparently. So if you want to listen to how she got into writing, check out that episode.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Abrams bought journalist Ellen Lee's middle grade narrative nonfiction book, We Are Warriors. The book tells the story of Chinese Americans from their arrival in the U.S. in the mid-19th century to today. Publication is projected for fall 2024. Always glad to see more historical books meant for young readers. As someone who did not take any Asian American studies class, who did not get any exposure to it in grade school, it's nice that there are books that are accessible to younger readers.
Yeah, teaching Asian American history to kids is I think is a net positive. I wish I had more context in like Chinese American history specifically growing up. All right, next up, in an exclusive submission, Bloomsbury bought world rights to A Year of Kites, written by Monisha Bajaj and illustrated by Amber Wren. The picture book takes readers on a journey around the globe, showing how kites are flown to honor gods and ancestors, bring good fortune, celebrate milestones, and join communities together. Publication is set for winter 2025.
You know, I never thought about kites being a global activity.
Yeah, me neither. Kites is like a cultural blind spot in my childhood. I don't remember ever like really flying a kite. I know we made kites in elementary school, but I don't think I ever got it to work.
Yeah, I know kites are a big thing in West Asia. So I guess we'll be learning more about that. You know, there is a lot of like tradition in kite flying over there.
Yeah.
All right, next up, in a preempt, Roaring Brook acquired Susie Yee's debut YA graphic novel, When a Tiger Flies. The book follows a 16-year-old Korean-American prodigy as she attends her first year at Harvard. A daughter of a tiger mom, Ara is far from her overprotective family and struggles with school, friendships, and a toxic first love, and discovers that she herself is a tiger too, strong, fierce, and resilient. Publication is planned for spring 2025. Woo, being the daughter of a tiger mom.
Yeah. Also, like, I don't know. I know it's a big deal, and I know people do this all the time, but 16 years old is way too young to be going to college, especially on your own, right?
Yeah, you say that, but like the author of Front Desk, Kelly Yang, she went to Harvard at like 13. It's definitely a different experience, and you know, like I'm kind of glad that like this main character is away from her overprotective family, you know? Like when you're in a household where you have like a strict parent like that, it's hard to discover yourself.
You say that, but I distinctly remember my college roommate. And even though he lived like 10 hours away from his father, he was still under his thumb. Like,
wow,
daily phone calls about
what that sounds studying. So stressful.
Like, yeah.
Like, well, it also, I don't know. It's a complicated relationship.
Yeah. All right. Next up, HarperCollins bought in a preempt Shimchong by Fred Ebb award-winning composer, lyricist, and debut author Julia Ryu. Pitched as a Korean princess story inspired by the author's own life and the blind man's daughter folktale, the middle-grade novel is a royal fantasy with princesses, family secrets, dueling kingdoms, all with a female-centered narrative. Publication is planned for fall 2025.
I'm looking up the tale of Shimchong because I like do not remember what it was. I feel like I should know.
Do you know what the blind man's daughter is? Is that Shimchong?
Yeah, that is Shimchong.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I know. Okay, no. I looked at Wikipedia and now I know. So Shimchong is a story about a woman who throws herself into the Indang Sea as a sacrifice so that her blind father can regain his eyesight, and she becomes resurrected and becomes an empress, and her father's blindness is cured. Yeah, I vaguely remember this folktale, but it is really cool that it blends in with the author's like own biography.
Yeah, wait. So is Shimchong? Is it a fable about like filial piety, or is it like? a girl power story. Like what?
It's a filial piety story for sure. And this tale is told in pansori, which is like traditional Korean singing. So it's more of like a song as well.
Oh.
More like an old-timey musical for like rooted in Korean traditions.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Albert Whitman bought world English rights to The Wedding Shoe Snatch by Madhu Messenger. During a treasured Indian wedding tradition, Shilpa, the bride's sister, makes sneaky plans to snatch the groom's shoes, while Rishi, the groom's brother, attempts to guard the shoes. The book will be illustrated by Darshika Varma. Publication is slated for fall 2024. So is this
cute.
A tradition in Indian weddings, snatching shoes?
I don't think so. I think this is just the story of a sister who does not want to give her older sister away and wants to sabotage the wedding. That's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, sounds cute. Sounds like a fun story about coming to terms with, changes in your family's life. All right. Next up, Greystone Kids bought Mountains by Julia Kuo, a picture book exploring mountain ranges and their exhilarating peaks. Publication is planned for spring 2026. That is a pretty straightforward prompt.
Yeah. Mountains and mountains. a book titled Mountains that shows mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have never been like a nature person, but I'm sure there are young readers out there that is their jam.
Yeah,
so,
mountains are cool. Yeah. They're big.
I mean, we live in a state where we can just see mountains. It's just like a Windows desktop background.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, it's not the same now because I moved away from the San Gabriel Valley. But where I used to live, which is where Rira lives, the mountains were always the sign for where north was because that's where the mountain range is. And so now without the mountains being my guide, my cardinal directions are all messed up here.
Yeah, as someone who like grew up in the East Coast and in the South, like we didn't really have mountains unless you like drove like a good distance away. So when I moved to California, I was like, whoa, like there are actual mountains here. Yeah. So congratulations to Julia on her picture book.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Disney Hyperion bought author-illustrator Primo Gallinosa's The Pet Placement Society middle grade graphic novel series for the Melissa de la Cruz studio, aimed at animal lovers and fans of the Babysitters Club. A group of tweens form a club to find the perfect homes for animals at the local shelter while learning how to deal with middle school drama. Publication of the first book is slated for spring 2025.
This sounds cute. It's like a babysitter's club for the new generation because as we all know, children are now pets or pets are now children, as evidenced by the many dogs in strollers in my local mall.
Yeah, and I think it's really cute and just wholesome that they're trying to find homes for their shelter dogs and shelter pets. So
teaching,
and also this book is for Melissa de la Cruz studio, and we recently talked to Melissa.
Yeah, in an episode you'll hear in the future. All right, our next deal: Joanna Cardenas acquired stand-up Yumi Chung author Jessica Kim's next middle grade novel, On Thin Ice. This sibling rivalry story is about two polar opposite fraternal twins, one a figure ice skater and the other a hockey player who must team up if they want to win in their respective sports. Publication is set for spring 2025.
Yo, I remember when I met up with Jessica like not that long ago and she told me about this book and I was like, Jessica, this is my book. You know how much I love figure skating.
Yeah, it's like Korean American, the cutting edge, but without the romance part of it, right?
Yeah, I think she described it as like, oh, it's Shib-Sibs, but with more fart jokes. And I was like, I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, congrats to Jessica on her next book. We talked to her on this podcast, I guess a couple years ago at this point, about her first book. And yeah, excited to see where she goes from here.
All right, our final book deal is in a 2-book agreement at auction. St. Martin's Press acquired world English rights to Anne Liang's A Song to Drown Rivers. The novel is a reimagining of the life of Shi Su, one of four beautiful women from an ancient Chinese legend. Pitched in the vein of Ariadne by Jennifer Saint and She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, the book is described to be a feminist take on the legend. Publication is slated for fall 2024. Yeah, we love feminist takes on patriarchal folklore and myths because, my God, there are so many.
Yeah, I'm looking up the legend of Shisu, and it looks like her story is basically she was sent, according to Wikipedia, in a sexpionage operation to successfully bring down the state of Wu.
Look at us not knowing our own, folk tales from our own culture. We have to, look stuff up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I think, I'm not super, I'm only familiar with, the major folk tales, like the Monkey King and Legend and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I'm sure there has been stories and media made of this story. I'm reading the Four Beauties of Ancient China, and I do recognize a couple of these names. One of them, Dao Chan, was a character in the Three Kingdoms. But this sounds like I think the underlying story of her being a spy makes for a really cool political historical thriller.
Yeah, and we've read She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which this book is being pitched in comparison. And I really like that novel. So I am down to read more reimaginings of Chinese myths and folklore and just having that feminist twist to it.
Yeah.
And that is the last book deal in our very long, exhaustive list. And we're going to move on to book news.
Yeah. What is our first story, Reba?
All right. So our first piece of news is She Is a Haunting by Trang Tan Tran has been on the New York Times bestsellers list for a whopping 7 weeks. It debuted at number 6 on the week of March 8th, and it's currently sitting at number 9 in the YA hardcovers bestsellers category. And according to Trang, I thought this description was really funny. They describe the book as a closeted queer teen with daddy issues fighting a hungry house in Vietnam. So I thought that was a really funny description. I've heard great things about this book. It's a creepy book. So for those of you who are, I guess, a little bit squeamish and don't like to be scared or anxious while reading, proceed with caution. But this is great. I love seeing Asian and Asian American authors, just being recognized by mainstream lists like these.
Yeah. And as we all know, there's nothing more creepy than Asian ghost stories.
Yeah. And I love how, this is centered on a queer protagonist as well. So this is a story that this is a representation that we don't really see all that often, although we are seeing more of it recently.
Yeah. I mean, any longer, we might have to also read it for a book club if you're up for a creepy book. It's been a while.
Yeah, maybe for Halloween.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done something creepy. I think the last was probably The Hole, which is more of a psychological thriller.
I mean, that was creepy as well. I did feel very anxious while reading it.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm such a wuss when it comes to scary movies and scary books. I think it's because I have an overactive imagination and I just imagine all of the possibilities that can happen.
Well, this sounds more like a gothic horror, which I think is probably more
it is
your
kind
jam.
of like a gothic horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so our next piece of news is, according to Variety, 5th Season is developing a series based on Jean Kwok's 2014 novel, Mambo in Chinatown, as well as her upcoming book, The Leftover Women. Both TV series adaptations will be produced by Kristen Campo under her Camp Out banner. 5th Season is the production house behind Severance, Tokyo Vice, and 80 for Brady. And Mambo in Chinatown, it's about a 22-year-old Charlie Wong who is torn between her family duties in Chinatown and her escape into the world of ballroom dancing. I didn't know that there was a ballroom dancing culture in in like the Chinese community, especially in like Chinatown community.
Oh yeah, especially with the older members of the community, and that's something that came into our mainstream consciousness in a very terrible way back during the Lunar New Year incidents. But yeah, it's definitely a like ballroom dancing, and surprisingly line dancing was very popular with the Chinese community when I was growing up as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think it makes for a really good story.
Yeah.
And Jean Kwok's other book, The Leftover Woman, it will be coming out on October 10th, 2023 by William Morrow. And it is described as an evocative family drama and riveting mystery about the ferocious pull of motherhood for two very different women.
Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to see like Asian stories being picked up and optioned. I always have to kind of rein in my expectations because we still don't know who's going to be working on these series, like who's going to be directing, who's going to be cast, and those are all really important decisions. And the other fact that like not all these projects will make it to the finish line. So it's cool that they've taken the first steps. It's cool that Jean Kwok has 2 projects in the pipe. Hopefully we'll see both of these in the near future on our screens.
She has 3 projects down the pipe because A Girl in Translation, her 2010 book, is currently being developed by Warner Brothers Television. I don't know if we covered that when the news broke, but yeah. She has a lot of books that can possibly be made into TV shows in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, like hopefully they will make it to the finish line. All right. So our last piece of news is also an adaptation news. People reported that Will Sharp from White Lotus will be directing the film adaptation of Michelle Zauner's memoir, Crying in H Mart, for MGM's Orion Pictures. The memoir centers around a coming-of-age story about Michelle, a half-Korean daughter who returns to a small town in Oregon to care for her ailing Korean mother. And Will Sharp is mixed race as well. He's British and Japanese. So I remember in an interview he said that he could relate to a lot of the experiences in Crying in H Mart.
Yeah, I think so. We talked about this in my other podcast as well, Good Pop, and this is one of the things that it's really cool that the story is being made into a movie. And I mean, Michelle Zauner's book is such a big hit, like it's such a crossover hit that it's not surprising that it's got option for adaptation. I wonder, how do you feel about Will Sharp directing this movie as a Japanese British man?
I mean, obviously there's going to be similarities, like what it means to grow up mixed race and growing up between 2 cultures and figuring out your identity. So I think there's a lot of common ground that he can draw from his own experiences to help him direct. But I also think it really depends on who they get for this project. I really do hope that they do get Korean Americans who have similar experiences as Michelle or can draw on the Korean American experience as someone who is a mixed race child. But yeah, I feel like Crying in H Mart, it was such a hit because there were universal themes. So I am optimistically cautious.
Yeah, I guess it's just that also could have been hired. So it's a little it's always a little eyebrow raising when decisions like this happen. Maybe because I'm too close to the industry that okay, I can see why they went with this guy because his name is on the rise. And I guess for me, it's also a little ironic, right? Because you have Will Sharp, a Japanese British man, directing this film based on a book written by Michelle Zauner, a Korean American woman who performs under the pseudonym Japanese Breakfast. So it's kind of like an Ouroboros of representation, eating its own tail, sort of, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. And I do worry that some of the specificity in Korean cooking and Korean food, because this book is called Crying in H Mart. H Mart is a Korean grocery store. So I am wary of is that specificity going to be lost? Because sometimes I'll see content where it's a Korean American family and I look at their table and I'm like, that's not what Koreans eat, or I'm like, that's not how they serve their food. It's like such a small detail, but it still like bothers me. So I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I guess we'll wait to see, the production design, the casting, and all the other stuff. But the team, I do like Will Sharp. I haven't seen his directing work, but I did enjoy his character on White Lotus. So yeah, I guess looking forward to learning more about this project. I mean, it's gonna be a big deal for the community when it comes out too, right?
Yeah. And hopefully music from Japanese Breakfast as like the soundtrack.
I'm pretty sure that is like
it better
the
be.
requirement of her selling the rights to the book. All right. I guess with that'll do it for our mid-month check-in for April 2023. We are a little over a week away from Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. As always, we're going to have a little fun activity for you all during that month. Rira and I are hard at work trying to figure out what we're going to do this time. But keep an eye on our Instagram for the announcements. And speaking of announcements, we are launching our Patreon. For the first time in 6 years, we are exploring ways to support this podcast and what we do, because we do want to do more. So if you are interested in supporting us, keep an eye out as well. We'll definitely appreciate all of your help.
Yeah, and also we're going to be at the Festival of AAPI Books at Bel Canto Books. A bunch of authors that we have interviewed on this podcast are going to be there. Julie Abe, Suzanne Park, and also They Call Us Bruce host Jeff Yang and Phil Yu, who is part of the Potluck collective. So yeah, it's going to be fun. So if you're going, say hi to us.
Yeah, it's taking place in Long Beach, California. So May 13th, come and say hi if you're going to be around. And before we go, Rira, can you remind us what we are reading for book club for April?
We are reading Jessie Q. Sutanto's Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. It's a cozy mystery about a 60-year-old self-proclaimed tea expert, and she finds a dead man in the middle of her tea shop. And she thinks that she can investigate the case better than the police. So it is quite a funny book. It is more of like a mystery comedy type of story, and I think Jessie has like such a great sense of humor, so it's a pretty fun read.
Yeah, looking forward to discussing that with you all at the end of the month. As always, if you finish the book, let us know your thoughts. We'd love to include them in our podcast discussion. But with that, thank you for listening to our April 2023 mid-month check-in. We'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rira Yu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey, I'm Phil Yu, and you may know me from a blog called Angry Asian Man.
And I'm Jeff Yang, author, journalist, and celebrity dad.
We host a podcast called They Call Us Bruce, an unfiltered conversation about what's happening in Asian America.
Each week or so, we host a discussion about some of the most vital and interesting topics in our pop culture and our community, bringing in guests who are shaping and informing this thing called Asian America from Hollywood to D.C. and beyond.
We got media, entertainment, food, family, politics, representation.
The good, the bad, the WTF of it all.
So check us out wherever you get your podcasts or at theycallusbruce.com.
Peace.
Peace.